But also she was talking about like, oh, we want to meet you in person and to get to know you and everything. And
Swinger.
And
Sorry.
she
Sounds like a sweet lady.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hey, so this is the start of our podcast, our very first one here.
Yay.
If you don't know my voice, this is Sergio Lopez.
And I'm Josh Lawyer.
All right. So,
and this is...
oh, yeah. And this is Waiting to Dry.
We're super good at this.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of growing pains here.
Oh, yeah. So buckle up, people. So I guess our first podcast, we're kind of going to go through how we got into art and who we are as artists and why we're starting this podcast and all that good stuff. So I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because I've known you a few years now, and I actually don't know a lot about like your background. Like we've always just talked about like whatever's going on in our lives at the moment, but like I never really like sat down and get to know like where you come from, like what your background art is. Like I've just picked up like bits and pieces of it and everything.
Yeah, I'm from Tunnel people. We grew up in the tunnel, so no, I mean I don't know. I have always doodled since I was a little kid.
Yeah, same here.
As far as I can remember, like I drew. I remember like, you know, when kids said like what they were going to be when they grew up.
Yeah.
At the time, the only thing I can remember is saying I wanted to be a artist, and I had no idea what that meant. I was just like, I'm going to be an artist.
Yeah, me too.
I would draw like little cartoon strip kind of things.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe that was like what I thought art was at the time. I mean,
oh, that's definitely what I thought it was too.
Yeah,
like when I was growing up, you just kind of had the idea that like, oh, you're an artist, so you're gonna be famous one day.
Right.
That's kind of what people always thought. Like, if the only artists people know anymore are famous artists.
Right.
So if you're not a famous artist, you're not an artist, apparently. I mean, like in people's brains, at least, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know Banksy is a popular question?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, yep. I know him personally. Him and 50 Cent.
He's paying you to not give his identity out.
Yeah, I am Banksy.
We're going to have to charge for this podcast.
Exactly. And then, from there, I just kind of always did that. I always drew on the back of homework. So, you know, you get like 10 math problems you had to do and turn in by the end of the day or by tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I was very bad at doing homework, first of all, but I was also very good at just drawing on my homework, and all my teachers kind of knew which little worksheet was mine. Because of that.
Oh, that's funny.
And then, I grew up pretty broke. It was funny because when we were kids, we went to the MoMA. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but we went to the MoMA, and my mom, I like ran around like a wild child, like in love with it.
Oh, no kidding.
As a kid, and the chaperone lady, she was like, wow, like you're really into this. Like I think we were in like third grade or something like that, like really young. And she was like, I'm gonna call your parents and let them know that they should like have you in art classes and have you pursue art and like get more serious about it. And I was like, awesome. And then years and years later, when I got like more professional, I don't know how to word that.
Sure.
Became more of an actual artist,
right? And
started showing my work. My mom, she was like, "Oh, Josh," my mom's a Tongan lady who comes from the island, so she, and there's 6 of us kids that she raised, so she one day she was like, "Oh, Josh, I remember when you were in elementary school." This lady called me and she said, "Oh, you should have Josh do art." And my mom never did that. She never bought me art supplies. She never was like, if anything, she was like, also go to school. Like she was like, I know you want to do art, Josh, but like become a doctor.
My mom is still a little bit that way.
Yeah, my mom too. But yeah, so I at the time when she mentioned that, I was like, thanks for nothing. But I mean, I'm just kidding. I love my mom.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, I went through school. My high school was in Central California. So
was it? Where?
Los Baños.
Oh, really? Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. The bathrooms, or like the people there like to say the hot springs.
Yeah, well, that's
like,
what it's...
Wink, wink.
Yeah, that's what it's referring to, but we all know what it really means.
Yeah, it's the huge wafting cow shit smell that blows through the town. But yeah, so yeah, we had like one somewhat decent art teacher lady who was like a hippie. And she was kind of like crazy. She'd be like really nice and then just get into like these like where she was more angry than I think anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then she was like the one art teacher that knew kind of like mediums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where I had another art teacher. He was in my advanced art class and he didn't even have like watercolors. He said, "Oh, you need watercolors? Just grab the." He would have like 1 gallon tubs of like poster paint, and he's like, "Just get that and add water to it."
Yeah,
and that was like water paints to him, and he just had no idea. He told everyone that like he wasn't really good at art himself.
Yeah,
like he didn't know how to do art.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was for me and then I was after high school I wanted to go to the Academy of Arts and I signed up, and then like right before it started, one of like the financial advisors, she called me or something like that, and she's like, do you want to like just calling just to like follow up with you about whatever? And I was like, I don't want to go to school. And she was like, oh, well, you lose any money that you've given us. And I was like, that's fine.
Wow.
So I dropped out before I started. And I just since then, I've just been teaching myself how to do
How come
art.
you dropped out like that?
I don't know. I'm not that into school. So that was a big thing.
Okay.
I also had like 2 friends I met who kind of like convinced me not to.
What was their rationale?
Well, both of them went to the Academy of Arts.
Oh.
And then they were like, oh, you should just like save your money. Like, don't go into debt. And I was like, all right. Like I was young, you know?
Yeah, I kind of get that.
And I kind of didn't have anyone, like as far as like my mom, she couldn't financially help me and my dad couldn't financially help me. So it was like, you should just like it's not worth it for you, man. And I was like, all right. And they were like, if you want it, you can just get it. Like, you just got to like keep trying. And I was like, all right. And I don't know. I was pretty much any advice that was given to me, I was going to take at the time. I was just young. And I mean, in some ways I kind of regret it. In other ways, I'm perfectly fine with it and happy about it. But yeah.
So at this point, you're about 18 years old or so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 18. Yeah. Right about that age. Yeah. Maybe a little younger. Because I was always like the youngest in my class. You know?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
I started art school at 17. So,
yeah. It might have been 17.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember though. But yeah.
So from there, what made you like, at that point, did you have in your mind that you were going to be a professional artist one day?
Yeah.
At that point, were you thinking about it in those terms? Or was it sort of a thing like, oh, in the future I'll do it? Or were you just like right out the gate, like, I'm going to try and make
right
money?
Right out the gate.
Oh, okay.
I thought
That's cool.
like I was like trying to become a professional artist, and I had no idea what that meant or how much work it takes.
Oh, for sure.
And I remember going to like upper playground. You know, they have that gallery, the 24, whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I went there and I was like, hello, I'd like to show here. And now I look back at my art and I'm like, ooh, that's so bad. But yeah, I was, and I got like offended because they were like, you know, like we like to work with like established artists. And I was like,
sure.
How dare you? You don't even know who I am.
They're like, you don't even know who you are.
Yeah, I don't know. I should go back and Pretty Women them nowadays. Yeah. Do you work off commission? Big mistake. But yeah, and they still probably be like, we're cool. We don't want to work with you still.
So when was your first show? Where did you end up showing?
It was this like boutique place called The Structure on Haight Street.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like my first, like, I don't even know if you call that like a show or, I mean, it is. They like they had like a monthly show or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I met like a good amount of like people through that I like every once in a while will see. But yeah, I showed with them. It was like I walked in and it was like close to upper playground. And at the time that was kind of like what I thought was like the greatest artwork of all. You know? Like I was like, oh man, everything is amazing. So just being kind of in the vicinity of upper playground was like a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And then being, you know, like Haight Street was like this like place that I thought was like important to be at the time. And I feel like I'm talking shit now. But yeah, I mean, it just is, it was just something I thought was great. And I still like really look back at those days as like, I had no idea what was going on, but they were extremely fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, so I walked in, I met the owner of the place with like my sketchbook in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I wandered in there. I'd never been there before. I just was like, oh, this place looks cool. And this artist, Eric Otto, you know Eric Otto?
Yeah, the name sounds familiar.
He was like showing there at the time, and I was like, oh, this stuff is cool. And then I was like, how do you guys choose your artist? And he was just like, the owner up there, he curates the shows. And I was like, cool. And then they were like, well, you could meet him. And I was like, okay. And then they saw my sketchbook and they were like, yeah, come back with your art and we'll check it out. And then he saw my art and he was like, yeah, your sketchbook's way better than your art. And I was like, he's like, yeah, but we could set some stuff up. And I was like, all right. And yeah, that show was kind of like a weird one because I was like figuring out how to make a painting, because pretty much up until then I almost spent all my time in my sketchbooks. Like paintings were kind of like
right,
not the priority at all. So that's when I brought my artwork, my official artwork to him. That's kind of why he was like, "Wow, this is way worse than your sketchbooks." Yeah, and that kind of like dictated a lot of how I painted for the year, like up, like till like after that I painted. If you look at my paintings, you see that there's a progression of like it's it's like pencil and color pencil based as like, and then I do like washes over that and then and that's just because I was so much more comfortable drawing than I was painting.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of how that's my like older style that I've kind of gone away from as of recently. That's how that started, was like he pointed out that like my drawings were so much better than my paintings. So I just like leaned towards my drawing even harder.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, that makes sense.
But yeah, and that's that.
And
now I'm here.
So you just kept pursuing that avenue of that scene, basically.
Yeah.
It's kind of been the scene that you've wanted to be in, or is it something that you're striving toward, like the next, I guess, level?
As of now?
Yeah, I guess so. Like if you look at it now, like how you're, where you started, like the scene. It seems like you're like, okay, well, this is the place that will have me, as opposed to like maybe now you're looking at where you might want to go next.
Yeah, and even the places that I was trying to get into when I was younger, they weren't like they're probably not the same place I would pursue now. Not only that, but
yeah,
you kind of realize that, like, you know, when you're young, you're like, if I get into this gallery, you know, like, then I made it. If I do this, then I made it. And then you start knocking away some of these like ideas, and you realize like, nah, that's not what does it. Like, it's, and made it then gets redefined too. You know, it's like, what does being what do I want to be as an artist? Do I want to be like this this thing that I thought was great when I was younger, or you know, just you just redefine what's important to you the older you get. And
you just as you learn about the scene and everything, you just start to realize, oh, okay, there's no one thing that defines success. Like I remember when I was about halfway through art school, White Walls was the place to be. Like shooting gallery right there on what is it, Polk Street? I forget.
Yeah, a lot of like trans hookers.
Yeah, but like when you'd go in there, you'd see who's showing there, and you're like, oh man, they're the shit. They got to be the people who they all have to be like the people that we're all trying to be as art students.
Right.
And so I thought, as I was leaving school, I'm like, okay, my fine art portfolio someday is going to be like, I'm going to knock on his door and he's going to show me, and it's like, I'm going to be in that range of artists of like, okay, that's what the goal is. That's who I need to be showing with to be the I guess one of the top artists in the Bay Area. But yeah, after a while, you just start hearing things about not only just learn that, oh, there's other galleries that might fit your stuff better, but then you also hear things about that gallery owner in particular. That's like, oh, okay, nowadays he's like basically run out of town. I think he's up in Portland or Seattle or someplace now.
Yeah, super good guy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like those sort of things that come by, and like, as when you're young, you don't realize your path through the art scene is not what you think it is when you first start out.
Right. Yeah, and I think now my main goal is just to like just get better. That's almost like all I try to do now is get better, and then on top of that, think of like an idea that I want to accomplish, and then go and do that, you know, and accomplish that idea more than showing in a gallery or, you know. Yeah. For sure, I want to like sell artwork and be able to survive off of that.
Yeah, of course.
But as of now, like just progressing is my main goal above anything. And I think now I just think that with that mindset, I think that things kind of just fall into place. And then when they do, it's just like, oh, that's cool. But those aren't my goals anymore. They're just, you know, like, oh, cool, that happened. But I don't know.
Yeah, I really think it's the same thing for me too, where I've gotten to the point now, I've been in the scene long enough, and I kind of know what I can, if I were to paint certain things, certain styles and subjects or whatever, where I have a realistic shot of putting that stuff. And now I've been painting long enough, I'm starting to kind of figure out my voice, whatever that might be, or at least like following my my artistic tendencies enough to know, like, with this new sort of abstractish sort of thing that I'm doing now. It's more about like, let me finish that and come up with something that I'm satisfied with, and then pursue a possible location or wherever venue to show that stuff in, rather than the other way around. Right.
Yeah, for sure. So let's bring it back and go to like your origin story. Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot of parallels there with yours. Just hearing what you were saying about it. Like I grew up not poor, but like not like my parents are both immigrants. They're both from Mexico, so they came here to Santa Rosa from Mexico. Well, my mom, I think, started in Southern California and then made her way up here. And my parents were actually neighbors, and that's how they started dating and everything.
Then he gave her the eye, and she gave him the eye. Yeah. One thing led to another, and here you are, Sergio.
Here I am. Well, two other brothers first, but...
they made two mistakes before you. Yeah. I got it.
Then I'm their masterpiece.
Yeah, you got to work out the kinks.
Yeah. But yeah, so growing up, like one of my very first memories is actually just like drawing at the dinner table, just drawing on whatever paper. And like as a kid, I was always into comics, but more like the Sunday funnies, because it's just whatever was available to me. Cartoons. I didn't really watch that many movies or anything like that as a kid, but I was always watching cartoons and all that, and looking at the comic strips, because that's kind of just what was available.
Right.
Like, as a little kid, I was such a big reader. I would read everything, just whatever was put in front of me.
I was almost the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We have like definite like different things. Like you hated school, I actually loved school. Yeah, so it's the same thing. Nobody in my family is an artist. I think we all sort of had like artistic inclinations. Like my brothers are all into music.
Right. All my brothers seem to draw. Like my oldest brother is actually kind of like a big inspiration for me, because he did graffiti.
Yeah, my brothers used to do graffiti too.
Yeah, and that kind of like got me into that whole thing. I just pursued it harder.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with me. Like they were all like, my brother used to go out and actually like do walls and shit like that. Yeah.
My brother too.
I bet mine was better though.
But yeah.
As a kid, it was just the sort of thing where it's like, oh yeah, one day I'll be an artist. But I also kind of was like into like medicine and stuff like that as well.
Right.
And so, because my mom is like a home health nurse.
Medicine, basically. Like.
Yeah, like doing like for a little while in like junior high school, I was kind of considering like being like a medical researcher, that sort of thing. Really? Yeah, but I just never, like, when it came down to it, it was more like, if I'm gonna study hardcore like you have to, I'd rather it be art. And nowadays I like have no real desire to do any sort of like doctoring sort of stuff. Because
my mom would be like, why don't you become a doctor? I'm like, Mom, that's ridiculous. Yeah. And you're like, maybe.
Yeah. Well, at the time, yeah, maybe that's why she's disappointed.
Yeah.
Nah, she's not disappointed, I hope. But she'll be less disappointed when I finally move out. But anyways, yeah, so as a kid, I was always a studious sort of kid, but I also drew in my spare time. So I think I probably would have been a person who doodled on my work too, but I was scared of getting in trouble for doing that. But like that was sort of like where I came from too. I was always drawing cartoon characters, or like got into Dragon Ball Z for a long time.
This is in high school?
Yeah, junior high, high school and all that. So so that kind of made me think of like, oh, okay, maybe I'll be a cartoonist or an animator or something.
Right.
And when it came to choosing my where I was going to go for college and all that, really I didn't know a whole lot else as far as art schools go. So that's why I ended up going to the Academy of Art. It wasn't until like the very end of my senior year in high school that I actually looked at other schools. And I applied to
Slow learner.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I applied to, what was it? It was an animation school in Southern California over near Magic Mountain. I forget what it's called. But looking back at it now, that would have been not the place for me to go. because it was all about either animation or like weird sort of conceptual art.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
I remember. I believe Tim Burton went there.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah. So yeah, it was more like, there's a few reasons I ended up going to the Academy of Art, but it actually ended up being a good school regardless. One, because it was the one that I'd heard of. Because being here in the Bay Area, that's the one you always hear about. They advertise pretty aggressively.
Yeah, pretty hard.
And also, they didn't require a portfolio for you to apply.
Yeah, they'll just accept anyone. Pretty much.
Yeah, that was basically their philosophy.
Like, stick figures, genius.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well,
just kidding, Academy.
They'll come after you. They got a lot of money.
I know.
Watch your mouth.
Yeah. Should.
So, it was pretty much right out of high school. As soon as I graduated, I think it was about a month after I graduated from high school that I went to the Academy of Art in the summer, the summer program, and I got a dorm on campus and all that.
Oh, wow.
And so very quickly you learn where you are in terms of your actual abilities.
Right.
And, like, because you get there and there are some people who have come from other schools and they're like kind of starting over, or there's just people that are just like really good because you're basically competing at this point with all the other 18-year-olds from around the world who are coming into
everyone
to the
that
school.
was the best artist at their school.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, is now at one school.
Yeah. So what determines how good you're going to be as an artist at that point is how hard you're willing to work from there.
Yeah. Plus, if you're big, you can like beat up the other people. So you can just use like intimidation.
Yeah.
Not skill.
So I definitely was not in that department. I probably weighed like 30 pounds less than I do now at this point.
So only 40 pounds at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And also I was like a really shy kid, and still pretty much that, but I'm getting better at that. But at that time, like pretty much the only people who I was able to make friends with are the people who initiated conversation with me.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, it was what I was saying before was that.
So when you graduated high school, were you still doing like Dragon Ball Z stuff, or?
Not as much, but yeah, a little bit.
What were you kind of headed towards? Like, what does Sergio's art look like in the senior year of high school?
I was doing some of the like still copying like Dragon Ball stuff, but I was also like doing a little bit like sci-fi-ish stuff. I actually have the painting in the hallway at home of this like crazy like mechanized octopus that I
was it based off the Matrix by any chance?
Probably. I'm pretty sure I'd seen the Matrix at that point. And it was no, I just took like because in high school of art in art class of high school, I the teacher basically knew that like my path was going to be art school, so she's like, oh, I don't really need to worry about you. You can do whatever the hell you want.
Right.
So she just let me draw and paint whatever, as long as I was doing something in class and like doing homework. It didn't really matter. So like the last couple months, she just let me like use as much acrylic paint as I wanted, and I painted this like probably like 20 by 20 inch painting of this octopus that I took some reference from like a National Geographic magazine, and then just like added like mechanized little parts to it.
Nice. What year is this?
2001. And
nice.
Yeah. And so that thing is still in the house hanging up. and
you haven't got any better since? Or?
Well, that remains. I'll leave that up to the critics. So yeah, from then on, it was just more about just learning how to actually draw. Because you think like until you see people in your class who can like actually draw, you just think like like you're awesome because it got you through high school.
That's why I still think I'm awesome, because I never went to class where everyone was good. I'm just like, I'm the greatest.
Now I'm just one of the greats.
Yeah. See, that's why you don't go to art school, kids.
Well, the problem is if I never went to art school, I would have probably been a doctor instead.
Yeah, with like cool Dragon Ball Z drawings up.
I would. Yeah, I had all the money to buy all the Dragon Ball Z comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just kept going through art school and met more people, and it was interesting because like you're still very much into using your sketchbook, and in art school, at least in the Academy of Art, at least. Your sketchbook was kind of your social currency in a way. Like people, you always wanted to like kind of be around the kids who are like the best artists,
right?
And the best way to show that off was like to go to like the workshops where you could draw from the models and everything, and like whoever was like the most awesome at drawing from life, we would go all the time to cafes like Borders books when that was still a thing. We'd go there. Yeah, exactly. I miss it. So we'd go to those places and just like sketch people for hours. And this was after like 8 to 10 hours of drawing at class too.
Right.
So there were only a couple of there was only a handful of us psychos who were that into drawing at that time. So like we got pretty good at it. And the problem was that a lot of my friends, they were more into the schooling and like getting better at drawing from life and all that. Like they didn't really care that much about like what comes after school. Whereas I was looking at like, well, this is going to be my career, so I better figure out like what I'm going to do next after this.
Right.
And I wasn't totally sure what path I was going to go because I started off actually my very first semester there was an animation major because I didn't really know any better. I just thought, okay, that the stuff that I thought was really cool on the walls, I just thought like animators were doing that. And then I quickly realized that, oh, that's actually the illustration department if you want to do that sort of thing, like paint and do like awesome illustrations.
Right.
I didn't realize that at the time that's what I wanted to do. So I quickly switched to illustration instead because that's where all the classes that I wanted to take were. And then pretty soon after that, after my very first oil painting class, I realized, oh, I really want to oil paint. Right. So even though I stayed an illustration major my entire schooling there, I took a lot of fine art classes. Like I actually don't have a degree from the Academy of Art because rather than like take my elective classes, like general ed courses for to get a degree, I just decided that if I'm going to spend that much money, I'd rather spend it on more painting and drawing classes.
Wait, so you don't have a degree?
Nope.
This podcast is over.
Yeah. So we're in the same boat, actually.
How dare you?
So we're at the same exact level of schooling as far as the government cares.
Yeah. And that's who loves art the most.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my my biggest art collector is the government, being as of now Donald Trump.
Is that right?
Yeah. He's a huge supporter. Wrong. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, from after school, that's kind of where I started being a fine artist per se. But I didn't really. I actually spent a year working on a portfolio because I actually thought that I was going to be a concept artist, and I actually was that for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Concept as in.
Like I did environment concept design for this startup company. Hit me up about a year a year out of school, and it was actually this guy who was business partners with Sid Mead. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's He's a concept artist he was the main concept artist for the original Blade Runner.
And what do you mean by concept artist? Like,
concept designs, like
just for like anyone that has no idea what
you're talking about. Before anything is made as far as movies and video games and all that sort of things, somebody has to come up with the ideas, the visual ideas for what these things are supposed to look like. And so you hire people to either create these ideas or you have an idea that you want illustrated for you. So like, for example, you're a writer and you have in your head the vision of the characters that you want them to be and the environment that you want them to inhabit. So you get somebody, a concept artist would be the person that actually takes your words and sort of brings them to visual light.
Right. All right.
So, yeah, I thought that I was going to do that for a long time and then just sort of transition from that into fine art. But the problem is now we're talking around 2008, 2009, and the market crashed, and the investors in that company were mostly in real estate, and that was like the main thing that took the hit during that time. So we quickly ran out of money, but we puttered along for about a year, and I was making pretty good money.
Nice.
I was able to afford a place in Marin County, which is like, now you think about it, like, wow.
Yeah.
That's
you should have invested in real estate then.
Yeah, totally. With my money I didn't have anymore.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of, at that point, I was basically at zero, because I was doing a couple little shows here and there, but because I wasn't making any real money any other way, it sort of forced me to be like, okay, how do I make money making fine art? Because this is something that I want to do anyway, and I don't have anything else at this point, so what I got to lose.
Right.
So 2010 is when I really first started to make the real push to being a fine artist, and that's that's pretty much where I've been at since then.
Nice.
At this point, that's kind of where I am.
Nice. So, yeah, I don't have anything else to say about that.
All right.
Yes. So I don't know what you want to talk about next. I mean,
so let's see.
What's new with you?
Well, oh yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, so but people don't know that I got hit up by this gallery in this gallery owner, she actually lives in Hawaii, but she has galleries in Tahoe and Vegas now. And she sent me an email way back in August about showing with her, but she was like concerned because she saw on my website that I sell a lot of work on my store, www.themainloop.com if you're interested. She was like, oh, well, do you sell your work online? I don't know if that would be or we're looking at that could be a potential problem. I was like, well, I don't know this person, so like, why do what right does she have to tell me this? Like, yeah. So I wrote her back, but basically what I said.
Wait, is she like in a time machine calling you?
Yeah, that's kind of what because when I said back to her, I was like, I don't think it's really reasonable for you to expect artists to not have their own
website.
Yeah, their website, like their own individual
way of selling their art.
Right. Yeah. In this day and age, it's just like, I don't know. I think you're sort of behind the times, and it's kind of more or less the gist of what I said to her.
Ooh, no, you didn't.
We're very outspoken. That's why we started this podcast.
Yeah.
So she wrote back. She's like, "Oh, actually, I kind of understand that, but the problem is, like, we've had artists that we've shown with before that, like, they kind of go around our backs to to our clients that we built up for them, and they try and sell directly to them."
Like who? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't even know. But that's something I've heard of, and galleries always have that sort of problem too.
Yeah.
So we just started talking from there, and then we spoke on the phone, and she was just telling me about all the things that she has going on with her gallery, and she's been around for 25 years, and she has 3 different galleries, so she's doing something right. And so from there, I just kind of got more interested in showing with them from there. And so I think it was probably around mid-September, we really started talking about putting together a portfolio of work for me to send out to her. And at the time I was working on the show, my group show in New York. And so I didn't have much to send to her yet. And then I told her that I would have stuff ready for her probably mid-December. And the fires we had here in Northern California, that threw that off for a while. So I just finished some of the work that I'm planning on sending down to her. And I hadn't heard from her for like a week after I'd sent it to her. And so she called me today, and she was like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, I'm getting kind of worried here, sort of. And I was like, "Oh, you didn't get my email that I sent last week?" And she's like, "No." And then she went and looked, and it was in her spam folder. So,
because you keep sending out those emails about I'm an African prince.
Yeah, exactly. My penis is 10 times larger too. So then she was like, "Oh, okay, yeah," because she was also so now she wants me to send that work out to her as soon as she goes through her gallery directors and all that, to see like what exactly she wants me to send out to her. But also she was talking about like, "Oh, we want to meet you in person and to get to know you and everything." And and
sorry.
She
sounds like a sweet lady.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, we'll find out. And she wanted me to come down to Vegas, and so we could all meet together with the gallery director. And they seem like they have like a pretty like legit operation. They have like actual salespeople, not just like people who mind the store, basically, how most galleries are. And then
who are like art students / interns.
Yeah, exactly. But she was like, "Oh yeah, so we'll fly you out. We'll put you up." I'm like, "Oh, okay." This sounds like actually legit, because how many galleries actually have the money to do that for their artists? Not a whole lot.
I think that single gallery.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like they'll probably demand a lot out of me.
Nice.
But at the same time, like if they can keep the lights on in the studio, then that's a win-win.
Yeah.
So they were talking about that happening sometime in February.
Did you need your assistant to go with you?
That we could, your
assistant.
Does your assistant love gambling and hookers and blow?
I don't mind it.
Oh, so you're an assistant now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the main news that I had today.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to meet this lady. This definitely sounds like a unique situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, just about working with a gallery, is that kind of like your past experience with working with galleries? And I know a lot of galleries seem to go through the internet nowadays to contact artists.
Yeah, she definitely, I'm not sure exactly how she found me, actually. I think I asked her and she wasn't quite sure. It was probably, just I put my stuff out there so much. I think your
assistant sent her your info.
I guess I owe my assistant a bottle of wine or something.
But yeah, but
you were asking me about is this a unique gallery situation? For me, definitely. Yeah.
How do you usually start working with galleries, or what makes you determine if you want to continue working with it?
I think in the beginning it's a bit of you just feel it out. If it's a gallery that you've heard of, that's obviously a plus.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of galleries I look at that I get solicited invitations from that I just don't. I just get a feeling about them that they don't seem like they'd be a great fit. And I actually kind of felt that way at first with this gallery because I was looking at a lot of the art and it felt a little too. A lot of the work that was in it felt a little too like strip mall sort of. Like,
I got what you're saying.
Like art, one of those like galleries that sell like mostly giclée prints of like whatever. Like one girl holding a glass of wine sort of stuff.
Like one of those galleries in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. So that actually took me a lot of convincing to decide, like, because she's really into what I'm doing. So maybe she's able to fly you out because she's part of the mafia, and it's all just a front. Well, if you don't hear back from me, then
well, I mean, it's fine.
There'll be a solo podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, most galleries, they, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of galleries. I don't really pursue galleries very much anymore these days. They mostly find me first.
Oh,
and
super cool.
Yeah. Well, do you seek out galleries? Do you try and like put together a portfolio for them or anything?
I'm on this thing called Pinder. It's like Tinder, but for gallery artists.
Yeah.
So just swipe left on the galleries you want to work with, and if it's a match, I don't know if it's left or right. I just hear everyone say swipe left. So
swipe left is no. Yeah. So
okay.
It's been a while since I've been on there too. Yeah.
Swipe right. Yeah. Yeah. We both haven't been on here since I don't know last Thursday, so I can't remember. But yeah. So. Yeah, that's how I get most of my gallery. I feel like I don't really work with that many galleries.
But you do a lot of shows though with galleries.
Yeah. And I kind of like, I don't go and pursue much gallery work, and the galleries I work with, I really enjoy working with them. Mm-hmm. For the most part, like the main gallery I work with is that Wonderland SF gallery, which is closing soon. Yeah. But the main reason I like working with them is because their art shows are just like chaos. Yeah. Which I enjoy when it's kind of more
themed chaos.
Yeah. And when it's kind of more like formal, it's like very uncomfortable for me to be there. Oh. So I just enjoy that atmosphere. That's like, and the owner I really love. But yeah, so that's like that's like the main reason I work with them, as well as they sell art well and they pay me on time. Yeah. Those are like two other important things, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Once you get into a relationship with a gallery, it's up to each other to hold up your end of the bargain. Yeah. A lot of times when I think I end up like not showing with galleries more often than the other way around, because I just have a certain standard that needs to be met as far as like sales go. Like if a gallery is always asking me for new art, but they're not selling the art that they have of mine, then it's kind of like that painting could be going somewhere else that might possibly be selling it.
It's not like bread; it doesn't go stale. Right. Yeah. It's and I've definitely had some issues where you kind of have to like, where a gallery, you kind of have to like hunt them down for your money, you know? You're like, you're like, hey, remember that painting that you sold? Mm-hmm. Can't wait to get paid for that. What has it been like 4 months? Like, which is like a shitty feeling. So I'd rather not put myself in that situation if I could. For sure. Yeah. And it sucks because sometimes it's like a decent gallery that's like way too well known for to do stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I've had that problem way less often than I thought I might, which is great. I think I just sort of lucked out with that. Yeah. Yeah, I still have galleries that I know owe me money. Oh wow. And I kind of just like, I'm like, well, it is what it is. Like, I'm never going to get it. I gave up on like trying to get it. And it's like, I just
if we weren't recording, I'd be asking you who.
and I've done it where they've contacted me and been like, hey, we should show with you again. And I'm like, you still owe me money. I'm not going to work with you. And then they're like,
and then they go, silent.
We do? Oh, we'll send it to you right now. And you're like,
oh, yeah.
And it's like, nah, I'm cool. Like, it's been like 4 years. Yeah. Like, Jesus. It's like, I just didn't forget, but I stopped trying to get it from you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, galleries are. What are your thoughts on galleries, by the way, while we're in this subject?
What do you mean? Like, what specifically?
Like, do you think that we should consume all our art on our telephones? It's like a softball.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We just need bigger telephones.
Yeah, that's true.
That we can mount on the wall.
VR. Yeah. We need virtual reality galleries.
Well, yeah, obviously their galleries are...
I can see your brain working right now, by the way. You're like, virtual reality galleries. It's genius.
I'm sure that will happen someday.
We're in the Matrix right now. What's his name? Elon Musk? Is that the right name?
Yeah.
I'm confusing him with Tesla.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, his name is... Yeah.
Well, does Elon Musk own Tesla?
Yeah.
I forget. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But I was thinking about, Tesla as in the science.
Oh, right. Nikola Tesla? Yeah.
Yeah, I was... Because I confused them because I put them in the same... They're like the same human to me now.
Really?
Just because he owns Tesla.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I made that link a long time ago, and now whenever I think of one, the other one's not far away.
Right.
But yeah. So.
Well, yeah, I think galleries will always be... There will always be a reason to have a gallery, if only just to be able to have somebody see the work in person.
Right.
It's getting more and more popular that, or at least mainstream, that people are buying work just because they saw it on Instagram.
Right.
And I don't know, I've never really had a situation where somebody wasn't more satisfied with the painting once they see it in person than
right. That would be, at least they haven't told you.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be awkward.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they haven't asked for their money back, so they can't be that.
They're like, used a really good filter on this painting.
Speaking of that, I never even use Instagram filters anymore. Do you?
I never used them to begin with.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that makes it easy.
I'm like super cool and stuff, so no big deal. But yeah. I actually haven't sold much art. I can't even think if I've actually sold artwork on Instagram.
Oh, really?
Maybe like prints. But I can't remember. MJ, my wife, MJ Lindo. Mm-hmm. She's an artist as well.
Yeah. She's actually how Josh and I met.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. But yeah, she sells like a ton of art on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of this weird thing where she sells a lot of art on Instagram because she uses super cool filters, and I sell a lot of more art in galleries because, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to talk that smack.
Because he's raw and unfiltered.
Shade is thrown. Come at me, MJ, if you want any of this. But yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely
so the majority of people seeing your work is in galleries, so it's more important.
I don't think that's the majority of people are seeing my art in galleries. I think the majority, I don't think...
I guess I phrased that wrong. People who are interested in buying your work mostly see it in person.
Yeah, my Instagram followers, they don't like my art enough.
Yeah. My Instagram followers are all poor, except for a few.
Yeah. Instagram, if you're listening, get a job. But but at the same time, I really appreciate Instagram. It's like one of those
for sure.
awesome things that you kind of start to see art. I don't know. It seems like it's taking these huge strides right now in quality because I think a lot of the artists that have been doing art for a good amount of time are almost like now getting pushed harder and harder by all the other artists around.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And this huge pool of, you know, talented artists, and you're just like seeing other artists. And I don't think it's a thing where everyone's copying each other, even though there's always going to be like a small amount of that, I think, or a big amount, depending on what you consider. I don't know. But I think just like a lot of artists are just like pushing themselves way harder than they probably would if they were in their small bubble of artists where it's almost like the art school, you know?
Yeah.
Where you're surrounded by all these great artists, but now Instagram plays that part where
now you're competing with the whole world, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pushing you to get better. And I think that's not a bad thing.
No, not at all. It's like for example, I think we're both pretty big fans of Benjamin Bjorklund, and he's a watercolorist from, I want to say, where is he? Sweden or something like that?
I actually don't know who you're talking. Only because I'm horrible at
Oh, okay.
Like if I saw his artwork, I'd be like, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah. He's a watercolorist, paints his dog a lot.
Oh yeah. Sorry. For future reference, by the way, anyone listening out there, I do not remember names at all. So if you're looking for someone to like Google, like, oh, they talked about this person, that's gonna come from Sergio. I'm like, who? And like, you know, Great Danes watercolors. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
Well,
awesome.
He has 5 times as many Instagram followers as us, so they probably know.
I mean, I'm not keeping track. Catch me in an alley, Benjamin.
But yeah, so I mean, the fact that he has that many followers, they're not all Swedish followers or wherever he's from, I'm sure.
I don't know.
So he's got people from around the world looking at his art, and if Instagram wasn't around, how many people would know about him?
Yeah, probably way less than they would know about me. Probably like 10 times less. Wait, how many followers did you say that?
He'd be in the negative 100,000s.
Yeah, it's not a competition, but if it wasn't for Instagram, I'd be winning. Yeah, that's he's amazing too. So go check him out. That guy that Sergio named. Yeah. There's just a ton of amazing artists, and there's like a good amount of them that just are doing stuff that I've never seen. But then again, I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to art history or anything like that. But yeah, is there any one artist you could think of that like is hugely influential to like, I mean, other than the Dragon Ball Z head illustrator of Dragon Ball Z?
You mean as like to me now, or as a sort of becoming like on the path I'm on now? So
I don't. Either way, I guess. Like, is there like someone that I don't know? Because I the only reason I ask is because I think like for me personally, I don't know if you know that artist Barry McGee.
Yeah,
he's like a San Francisco legend, and he like since I can remember, just because my brother did graffiti, and he like put me on game when I was like, you know, wee little lad. I think I was in like first grade when I first knew about Barry McGee. So like my whole life, like I've just been looking up to this artist.
Oh, okay.
And my style is or you know what I paint or whatever is nothing like Barry McGee, but he's just like the one artist that like if I saw him, I would definitely fan out like a Bieber girl, whatever they're called. Oh, like a Justin Bieber fan.
Yeah,
they got a name, right? Bieber.
What are they called? Believers.
There you go. I knew it was something ridiculous. Really cool.
I can't think of anybody that would really fanboy out. I mean, there's a lot. I have definitely like living art heroes. I guess it depends on I guess the genre of artwork. For a long time, I was really into Richard Schmid and Jeremy Lipking and people who paint like that. Those like really sort of stuff that you can really see the brushwork, and when you step back from it, it looks like completely realistic.
Right.
And so like those guys were like kind of when I was coming up as an art student, they were kind of the people who we all sort of looked at. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of other guys like Justin Kaufman, who goes by El Coro.
This was a bad idea by me because I'm like, I have no idea who you're talking about. I'm like asking like, who are the artists? And then you're like, this person. I'm like,
well, that's why I'm trying to like just I'm not trying to dive too deeply.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
There was this guy, El Coro, whose real name is Justin Kaufman, and he went to the same school as I did, probably about 5-6 years before I did. But he was super influential because there was this website called conceptart.org. I don't know if you ever went on it before.
Nope.
Okay. But it was all about, like people who are in the concept art business or students who are looking into concept art, mm-hmm. doing concept art. And that was actually a big influence on me in general. That website is kind of the reason I wanted to go into concept art mm-hmm. as a thing back then. And so Coro was one of those guys who his sketchbook was always amazing. Like even his oldest stuff is still I think his oldest stuff, a lot of it still holds up. Mm-hmm. And he is amazing. Like he's just amazing at everything he does just because he's so dedicated to art. And right. Like nowadays he's doing these giant, super realistic renderings of like just like a scene in the forest near where he lives now. But he was one of those guys, his influences were similar to mine. He was like really into graffiti and mm-hmm. Really into a lot of the same sort of like golden age illustrators like Rockwell and Leyendecker right. and those guys. Mm-hmm. And so, but he was able to paint really awesome and like show his influences a lot. And it just like what he was doing back then, just like I wanted to sort of emulate. And then when he got into doing concept art and was like the art director at a pretty big concept art company, I thought, okay, I kind of want that life too. Right. So I always kind of looked at him as like the model to follow. And I did meet him later on. He was doing a show at White Walls actually. Nice. Circling That's back awesome. To that. And so that was the first time I ever met him. And he actually knew who I was because of conceptart.org too, because we kind of talked on that forum here and there.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he'd give me critiques, and his critiques were actually really good too. So every time I'd got to see him, because then he was kind of always in the fine art scene of the people that I know in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And so I'd see him every so often, and yeah, it was just cool to like actually like, oh, okay. I don't think I ever put it in those terms like, you're my hero.
Yeah, he didn't.
I was too cool for that.
He didn't sign like your chest or something.
He would have if I asked him to. But yeah, that was a guy. And then like these days, I really like a lot of the like what the Low Collective guys are doing. Those sort of like new contemporary artists. I guess I think that's the sort of the label that people put on that kind of art.
I have no idea. I mean, I don't really. Every time anyone like pulls out like a title like that, I'm mm-hmm. always like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Especially because like everything that's happening on right now is like, at least the art going on right now is always like, is what I'm super hyped about. Mm-hmm. A lot of people look back at like the older like masters or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a couple that like almost kind of like I feel like a lot of the art now is almost like inspired by Rockwell. Like you see this like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
Slightly exaggerated's to a lot of the artwork that I really mm-hmm. enjoy, but a lot of the new stuff I think is amazing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah.
No, I agree. Like, for a long time, I just thought that, anything that's good was done 100 years ago. But I think now that there's such an emphasis on skills now, that people are starting to catch up, and they're bringing in a lot of influences of the movements that we had in the last century.
Right.
Like the stuff that's like the cream that sort of rose to the top, like the stuff that's actually valid, people are holding on to. And it's like, okay, yeah, there is actually a lot that people explored with oil paint in terms of texture and just abstract sort of informal qualities to paint that people who are too into like classical sort of academic realism don't pay enough attention to. But at the same time,
how dare you?
Shots fired.
I think they pay enough attention to all of what you just said.
Right.
How dare you? But yeah, for sure. Just from human nature, you can kind of see where there are these people that get obsessed about the olden times.
Yeah.
And and just the idea that like it was done right, and there is some validity to that, but I mean, when it comes to like art forms in general, for me it's tough to like I don't know how to put it, just to kind of like be able to get anything from it other than that's amazing. It's almost like if I listen to like classical music, I'm like, wow, that's like amazing, and like I probably should try to learn it and stuff. But the music of our generation is the stuff that like instantly speaks to me, and I think you can get lost in like, at least for me, that's just how my brain works, and I can see where other people are going to be, or they'll say like, like classical is the greatest form of music, and they're probably right, but that's just not what I'm going to listen to. Yeah. I'm sorry, and I think, as far as like art is concerned, I think that's the, one thing I noticed a lot with a lot of the guys that are like really into the classical artwork is it like, it speaks to them in a way it can't speak to me. And I mean, I don't think people are judging me, but I just can't, I can't do it. I mean, I can and can't do it. I can every once in a while look at like a master and be like, damn, they're good.
Right.
But that's almost as far as it gets. I'm not going to get really touched or empathize with the painting as much as I will with something.
Sure. Yeah. I agree with a lot of that. Yeah, we can talk about, so yeah, the painting. I don't know if this will be so much a critique, because at least the painting that I wanted to offer up as far as that was the one I'm working on right now. Yeah. Because where I'm at with it right now, it's not like a lot of times I've been trying to do these. Maybe what we should do is
maybe like mention kind of what our thought process is, or what we're doing.
Yeah.
So one of the ideas we had is to grab a single painting, not necessarily ours. Today it's going to be this guy I know named Sergio. But the whole idea is that we'll pick a painting and we'll kind of critique it and give our honest opinion about it.
And when we're hoping to have guests and everything on this podcast as well. So one of the things that we wanted to do also was to have the artists give a little bit of a talk about like what their thought process is behind it, because a lot of podcasts, I feel like they focus a lot on like technique and things like that when they talk about their paintings or stuff like that, and it's just too hard to convey anything useful as far as like a technique of something you're doing with your hands, like to be something that you can really convey to somebody's ears. So instead we wanted to just get sort of a talk about why they paint, how they paint, kind of.
I just heard a good metaphor about this on the podcast suggested donations.
Oh yeah.
where
big fans of yours, by the way.
his their guest, I forget his name, but he of course I forget his name. Thanks for the info, bye.
Yeah.
But he said that something about like teaching art isn't like rocket science, it's more like tightrope walking, where you can explain tightrope walking, but you have to get out there and do it to like learn.
Wow, that's a cool idea.
And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So yeah, that kind of goes back to your like technique thing. It's like we could just kind of explain it. I mean, probably not going to work. YouTube tutorials might be a little better for that.
Right. Yeah. Seeing it visually will help. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to bring in some technical things that
for sure.
you can talk about for sure. But that's not going to be what the main aim of this segment will be.
Yeah. It's mostly to talk shit about artists and their painting.
Basically.
So Sergio, first, this painting fucking sucks.
I knew it.
I'm just kidding.
Just needed somebody else to agree with me on
Do
that.
you have a fire? Can we throw it in there? So yeah, do you want to like kind of break down the painting we have?
Yeah, I think what we'll do with these is just we'll post them on our social media, the pictures, so that people know what we're talking about. So there's a painting that I have going on right now. It's from the Proud Birds series that I've been doing for the past few years, off and on. And it's usually, or it's always women, but it's women usually sort of in a outdoor setting, with wearing sort of feathers as decoration almost. And but this one in particular is a friend of mine who posed for me here in my studio, and it's pretty stark black background with a sort of a pheasant behind her. She's wearing a crown and sort of a collar with the feathers around her, and she's wearing sort of like this black sort of like slip dress sort of thing. And the whole idea when I first started coming up with this series was a bit of a sort of a rebellion against kind of even, it's kind of funny to even bring this up now, because it was sort of a rebellion against like everybody telling you about, as a fine artist, like does your work always have to have some like deep meaning behind it? And my argument was, well, as long as you like the painting enough, it can just be about the aesthetic qualities of it. And as long as there's something there that you find interesting visually, it doesn't necessarily have to be some anything sort of a story being told like in a sort of preachy way, like sometimes art can be.
I'll do.
But it's interesting because a lot of your work, Josh, has you think a lot about the idea behind it.
Right.
So I was curious about like what you think of that sort of even thought process behind.
I mean,
coming to painting in that, from that direction, really.
Well, for me, it's just kind of like a thing I'm obsessed with. Mm-hmm. It's maybe when I was younger, I'd be like, bullshit. But the older I get, the more I think what's important is like pursuing what's natural to you to a point. You know what I mean? Like if so for me, it's hard not to think about what I'm trying to convey through what I'm putting on the thing. And it one of the big things I used to draw when I was in high school, bringing it back to then, which it's like super lame, and it's very dark, like a sad high school kid would draw.
Yeah.
Not that I was like necessarily sad, but whatever. But I used to always draw this like, it's not even necessarily sad. It was almost like anti the man.
Oh, for sure.
But it used to be like this guy hanging, of course, because when you're a high schooler,
were you emo?
There's no subtlety. I was not at all. Actually. It's funny. But then I would draw like a window, right? And then I would draw like a speaker in the room, and I would draw like this like piece of hanging cheese. And there was like a cross in the corner of this room they were hung in or whatever, and like cobwebs and something. And I would always call it brain dead. And I'd be like, the guy hanging is the brain, and like the window is like your eyes, because your eyes are the window to your soul. Like, and it's like this very like obvious and horrible like like symbolism for everything. And,
yeah.
And oh yeah, I'm getting embarrassed. I should have just talked about this.
But yeah, that's actually kind of why I shy away from a lot of like stuff that I try to like pull in that has that sort of meaning, because I just feel like a lot of it is just so cliche.
Right.
If I don't.
One thing I will say though is like the older I get, the more I'm like into the subtlety of it. You know, obviously, I'm way more kind of like. I mean, I think it's like, and it's not necessarily for anyone but me at this point. You know, like I'm not adding, like no one's ever gonna know what like all the random stuff I put into my painting and what the thought process is behind it. And every once in a while someone might ask, you know, and there's definitely like easy ones to like say like, that's obviously that, you know, like I paint a lot of little houses in it. Yeah. It's like, that's obvious, you know, like these are the obvious things. It's like, it's just kind of like that's what this means. And now you have to like figure out like all the little things that kind of explain what the house is, you know, like to this person. And to me, that's like, it's just like naturally how I think. And I think that's fine. And I think the other way is by like the other thing being, I'm just trying to paint something beautiful, or I'm just trying to capture a moment, you know, not necessarily anything hidden in there, or anything I'm trying to say is just as good, as long to me it's good as long as it's almost like what you naturally lean to. Like, I mean, even then, who gives a fuck, really? But yeah, I would say it's sometimes I'm not that into like now that I'm older and not that much against the man. I'm not that into like being different for different sake. Does that make any sense? Like, I don't know if necessarily this painting's trying to do that, but but that just like that's not even necessarily about artwork, more about like people in general. Yeah. Like I don't know where I was going with that, but the painting, by the way, I think is amazing.
Thanks. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like, should I keep it simple in that way, or do I need to do anything to make it more interesting, or is it hold up on its own? Like, well, even though it's not finished, so it's hard to say for sure. In my opinion, I always go with like simpler is better. Like, I mean, I don't even know if people look at my art and think it's like complicated or something, but I try to make like the backgrounds as little like as not as distracting as I can. Like a lot of my backgrounds in my paintings are just like gray, you know, and it, like we'll have like little things here and there. I mean, the main thing behind that was like years of doing graffiti. That's kind of like an ode to that, and an ode to like graffiti as a whole, being like that there's like this thing that's against the gray wall and is like and I find very attractive, that being graffiti. And so like to me, that has always just been the ode in all my artwork, has kind of been like this gray wall, try to keep it as simple, and then there's this woman in front of it who just catches your eye. And that was like that's like was the idea behind that. But I just like that. I also just like the simplicity of like not
going too crazy on backgrounds to begin with.
Oh, okay.
So like to me, the black is almost exactly what I want.
Oh, okay.
You know? Like, in my opinion, but you don't have to listen to me. You don't take my word for it. Just read it.
I'm definitely going to add more to it. It just feels... I want it to stay black, but I want there to be a little bit of a subtle texture in it.
Yeah, for sure.
But for the most part, I'm not going to do a whole lot with it. I actually really like the starkness of it. Everything.
I think so.
Most of my work is really kind of light and airy as far as like the female figure stuff goes, and so I don't really give myself the opportunity to even like go darker with it, like just even in a compositional way. So
yeah,
I'm having fun with these.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's an amazing painting. I can't stop looking at her left leg, my right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just really like some of the little colors you put in there. Like it looks like you put a little blue right in her hip.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
It looks awesome.
Yeah. Because I think these were, when I was shooting her here in the studio, I think I was just using natural daylight. So there's a little bluishness in skylight. So
and it looks like in the right side, like kind of right next to her hand. It almost looks like there's like a vein or something there, but not like super obvious.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you see what I'm saying.
I don't know exactly what you mean, but I know what I was going for. So I know what you're seeing without actually knowing.
It's almost like, you know how like I'm assuming her skin is pretty like pale.
Yeah.
And you kind of get that like blotchiness or
right, exactly. It's like the veins underneath sort of showing through. Yeah, that's exactly what's kind of going for.
Yeah, and that part's awesome.
Thanks.
But yeah, I always like that stuff.
The subtlety. There we go. Back to that.
Yeah, exactly, the subtlety. So does I got a friend named Talopa, and he always tells me, he's like, you want to sell a painting? Put a bird in it. And then I always give him shit because he always puts birds in his paintings.
Oh, does he?
And I'm like, oh, you want to sell a painting? Put a bird in it.
Well, so far the paintings I've done from this series of photos have sold, so we'll see what happens with this one.
Well, there you go. If you guys want to leave with anything, that is, put a bird in it.
Also, if you're a landscape painter, paint boats.
Yeah. Birds and boats are like, in the culinary world, is like bacon.
Yeah.
Bacon and truffles.
Oh, yeah. Truffles, yeah.
You just put a little bit in there and people eat it up. But yeah.
All right.
I think we're coming to an end.
I believe so.
It's been pretty long. So what do you got going on during the weekend?
This weekend, what do I have going on? Oh, I got a model shoot with.
Me too.
Oh yeah, that's right. But you guys are going to city to shoot with her? Yeah,
to a buddy's house.
Oh, okay, he's right on.
Borrow his house for a weekend, and letting us all crash there. So,
you guys gonna shoot her indoors there, or?
Yeah, probably indoors, and we're gonna go to forget what it's called. It's like a plant place. They have a ton of plants.
The
people are gonna
botanical garden or something like that.
There you go. There it is. Yeah.
Is it near or is the garden in Golden Gate Park?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the botanical garden. I don't know where it is.
Oh, I don't know either.
People are gonna hate me by the end of this. You know why? Because I'm always gonna be like, it's that one thing called whatever. And I'm gonna be like, what is it called? Give me the answers.
We'll put notes in the the show notes.
Yeah. Our notes are gonna be mind your beeswax, none of yours.
How'd you meet this model?
My wife MJ reached out to her through the Instagrams.
Oh, nice.
And and that's kind of how we've been meeting models recently.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
And it seems to work out great. wish I lived in LA.
Yeah.
Because
most of them are down there, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's like a big place for models would be.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if there's any models in Santa Rosa.
There are a couple.
Yeah. Feel free to hit me up.
Yeah. Or anywhere in the Bay Area. Huh?
Yeah. It's like I enjoy shooting at my house way more than any other place where I can control everything, all the lighting, the temperature, all that good stuff.
Totally. For sure. Yeah. I'm fortunate to have this sweet setup here.
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. And my model, I think, is based out of LA as well.
Nice.
So she's coming up Sunday. So that shoot is happening noon. But yeah, other than that.
That shot is happening what?
That shoot's happening noon Sunday.
Oh, noon. I thought you said nude.
Well, she's going to be nude, I think.
Yeah, I assumed that much.
Remains to be seen if I will be.
But yeah, is that it?
I believe so, yeah.
I know me and MJ, I mean, we were talking, we wanted to go with you, but I don't know if that's going to happen. We're trying to go to that that museum. The
Klimt show?
Yeah, the Klimt
and
show.
Rodin, yeah.
Yeah, at Legion of Honors.
Yeah, I guess we'll see if we can figure that out. But
yeah, we're going to see it Sunday morning.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking, I figure you guys probably won't be able to go when I was thinking about going, so.
Yeah. So we'll have to, I'll just Facebook Live you the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that should be it. This is the first episode.
Yeah, I think that went pretty well.
Yeah, waiting to dry.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we should explain the name of the thingy, but I don't know. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
You named it. So.
Yeah, it's waiting to dry. If you're an artist, you know how that feels.
Yeah, and this is kind of killing time while that happens, and then you kind of like that it sounds like waiting to die.
Yeah, that too.
Because we're also killing time for
Exactly.
that, waiting for that to happen too.
Yeah, so it was like it was a long drunk conversation. Sergio was drunk. I was in a drive home from the city where we just went back and forth on ideas of titles, and this is where we landed. So let us know if you hate it. If you love it, keep it to yourself. And I think
if you love it, I'd love to hear that too.
Keep it to yourself.
He doesn't have an ego. I do.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
All right, guys.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
We've obviously practiced this closing. I don't know what to do with my hands.
I have no idea either.
Yeah. So, fuck off.
All right. We'll catch you on the next one, whenever that will be.
All right. Bye.
All right.